Can a homosexual ever be delivered from the homosexual lifestyle? Occupying Till He Comes at Southwest Prophecy Ministries.
Welcome, friends. This is Dane Rome, your announcer for today's Last Days Beacon program. Thanks for listening, and thank you for joining us again. And just a reminder that these programs are supported by your gifts to this ministry. If you would like to contribute to this ongoing faith ministry, which deals with Bible prophecy and current events, simply go to our website to contribute. Our website address is www.swpm.us. You'll find a donate link on the homepage. The website address again is www.swpm.us. Thank you for your prayers and support for this faith ministry. Well, on today's program, Dr. Snitker is interviewing Stephen Black, the Executive Director of First Stone Ministries in Oklahoma City. Stephen is a former homosexual who was gloriously saved and delivered by the grace and power of the Lord Jesus Christ. For the last 30 years, he has dedicated his life to helping people in the LGBT community come to a realization of freedom through Jesus Christ. Based on his experience in helping others in this way, he has written an amazing book entitled Freedom Realized. This is a passionate and convicting book that gives clear evidence that people, in fact, do find lasting freedom from homosexuality and freedom from a life defined by gay identity fallacies. This book is needed by church members and leadership as arsenal in their battle for truth in the reaching the gay community for Christ. At the end of today's podcast, I will share how you can obtain a copy of Freedom Realized. And now, let's join Dr. Snitker and Stephen Black for today's discussion.
Thank you, Dane. I'm very excited once again to welcome back Stephen Black to Southwest Prophecy Ministries for this second in 4 interviews about serious sexual addictions like homosexuality and lesbianism. Stephen is the Executive Director of First Stone Ministries here in Oklahoma City and is the author of a great new book entitled Freedom Realized. Now, at the end of today's show, Dane will share how you can purchase this great new book. Well, I had the privilege of hearing Stephen for the first time at a recent meeting of the Oklahoma Conservative Political Action Committee. Stephen is the Executive Director of First Stone Ministries here in Oklahoma City, and Stephen is a very passionate advocate of how God can work in the lives of those who have serious sexual addictions and how they can become free through Jesus Christ and His glorious gospel. Well, Stephen, welcome back to Southwest Prophecy Ministries.
Thank you, Dave. It's good to be back.
It's great to have you. We had a great discussion last week.
Yes, sir.
And we want to pick up where we left off. I have my first question is this. The world right now is telling us that homosexuals can't be delivered from homosexuality and that they shouldn't want to be. And if you are anything other than a heterosexual, you were born that way and you can't nor should you seek to change. That seems to be the consistent message that we hear in the media today and certainly by the LGBTQ community. Well, since you have been counseling homosexuals and lesbians for years, is this true in your experience?
It absolutely is not true. The Bible is the final authority on human sexuality, is our worldview, is our belief system. And it's not just a idea. It's actually an experience. Everyone on our staff at First Stone, and I would say I know several hundred leaders that actually help people overcome homosexuality in specialized ministry, and most of those people have actually overcome homosexuality, and even some with the chaos of transgenderism. And so there is a lot of evidence from just the ministerial perspective of people that testify, like Revelations chapter 12 and Psalms 19. I love Psalms 19. It says the testimony of the simple the testimonies of the Lord make wise the simple. And so when a testimony or the work of grace happens in a person's life, if somebody will believe, then it makes them actually wise who are simple. The world is very simple-minded. The APA would say that orientation rarely changes. Well, we know that the APA, and I liken the APA parallel to the mindset of like Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is an organization that says they're for women and they're for women's reproductive rights. Sounds like they're good and nice.
Oh, yes.
Yes. But the APA has become a political agendas type organization to actually promote sexual perversion.
Now, what does APA stand for?
Yeah, good question. The American Psychological Association. And they're usually the ones that are training all of our people in higher learning on the idea of psychology. And so you have all of these young people coming out of college believing their narrative, which is either people are born this way, or if they're honest even with their own science, if they actually look at their own data, is now we do have the science that people are not born gay. Since the human genome of DNA has been mapped in the actually about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we got all of that, and DNA information is actually only increased in the science of understanding there is no gay gene. So no gay gene. There's still some scientific out on endorphins and the brainwashing in utero of whether or not that they could lend a propensity towards maybe a soft male or a strong woman. But still, genetically, there's no predisposition to homosexual behavior. It's a lie. It's been propagated since 1991, since the Simon LeVay report came out on the hypothalamus. Even Simon LeVay, when Newsweek put out that story nationwide, it was big news, right? Well, even Simon LeVay came back and said, that's not what my research concluded. No, well, I didn't conclude that people were born gay, but they put out, in the spring of 91, a picture of a baby. Is this child born gay? And ever since 1991, when that hit the United States media, that lie has been propagated over and over and over. Then you have Hollywood and pop culture, Lady Gaga, you're born this way, all this crazy stuff. That now, since the early 90s, now these kids that are, coming up now, and especially 20 and older to 30, that grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, that's all they've heard, is that people are born this way. Well, it's a lie. And the Atlantis Journal actually put out a scientific report in October 2016, Dr. McHugh from Johns Hopkins, that conclusively showed that there is no born this way, and that actually showed that people do change.
So are you asserting that Justice Anthony Kennedy, in the 2015 decision that legalized gay marriage, he said that homosexuality is immutable?
Right. And here's what's really sad about Justice Kennedy is I know personally that he lied, because I was a part of an amicus brief that was given to all the justices that conclusively showed that people were not born gay and that many people actually change. So Justice Kennedy had this information, either one or two things. He is either lying to the American public or he didn't do his job as a justice by reading what was given to him that he was to base his judgment upon. Either he did not read the amicus brief, but if you ask any justice, that would say that's impossible because they're good at what they do, so they have to read. So I have to conclude that Justice Kennedy based his ruling upon a lie.
And possibly, of course, it's hard to get into a person's heart, but possibly to avoid the pressure and persecution that would come from the LGBTQ community if he was a dissenting vote on that issue.
Oh, and it would have been fierce.
Oh, I'm sure it would be.
Yeah, it would have been fierce. And he was looking at retirement. And so he wanted to play the political posturing game.
Let me ask this, Stephen. Christian ministries have been criticized for, quote, trying to pray the gay away. That's how it has been characterized. What is actually involved in counseling someone with a serious sexual addiction, and why do some people succeed in leaving the homosexual lifestyle and others do not?
Great question, Dave. This pray the gay away terminology actually came from gay activists.
Oh, of course.
And we don't just pray away the gay. I like what Joe Dallas says. I like his quote. We don't pray the gay away. We reckon the gay as part of the decay. And when you think about gay or gayness or sexual sin as part of the original propensity towards sin, the fall, then it makes more sense to say we don't pray the gay away. We are looking towards a propensity of dying to self and teach that in discipleship. So what happens if someone really wants help? And we do not see people that don't want help. The idea that we're torturing or somehow harming youth.
So you don't stretch people out on the rack until they renounce their sexual sin?
No, we don't do that. And we don't take them to a back room with an electroshock machine or water torturers or beat them with canes. You know, all that has actually been put out there under it's called aversion therapy or conversion therapy. Those are ruse terms that the HRC, the Human Rights Campaign lobbying group out of Washington, D.C., and the SPLC, that's the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Oh, yes. Very reputable organization.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, they've been really discredited.
Yes.
And, you know, the even with the Human Rights Campaign, the sexual perversion that's come out of that group. So these people have a narrative that they're driving with an agenda to actually promote the idea that ministries and counselors or even therapists that do a good job are somehow harming people. And it is exactly the opposite. It's not praying away the gay. It's actually with the person that wants help is looking at their history. And Dave, some of these people, when you unpack it, they have some of the worst kinds of traumas and sexual abuse, and they have a lot of family history that's full of pain and sorrow. That's, I would say, high 90. The high percentage of people that we minister to have that. And the interesting thing is we actually minister to mainly people that are in the church. So they're usually either connected to some way of believing the Bible or the gospel. So we're not out here trying to proselytize the gay community.
So you're not pulling people off gay parade floats and forcing them into your ministry. So
no.
These are people who voluntarily come to you seeking help.
That's exactly right. And they want the help. And now here's the difficult thing for us is that we would love for all the people that were a part of our survey, the 1,200 client folders over 25 years, we would love for them all to come forward and testify of the goodness of Jesus Christ in their life. But what happens is most people, they come out of the church, they get their healing, they get freedom, and they go back into the church. They're still present in the church, and they don't want to be labeled with this ex-gay thing, or even an association to their sexual sin and brokenness because of the shame, but also because they're going on to live a new life and they're living productive lives. And so what has happened in the last 20 years is fewer and fewer people are willing to actually testify because they're afraid, and some of these people are in high profile business, and now the HRC has made it to where if people in business come out as ex-gay, they're going to be persecuted and excoriated.
Possibly lose their jobs.
Oh, absolutely.
And their reputations.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've seen even like, bakers and florists and cake makers and people that do photography or wedding chapels or bed and breakfasts, people being persecuted by the LGBTQ and sued and losing their businesses.
Right. Absolutely.
So people are afraid.
Right. So it's driven people undercover, both those who've recovered from the gay lifestyle.
That's right.
And then Christian people, or people of religious faith who have convictions about servicing gay people for like weddings, etc. They have drawn back just out of fear
That's right.
of what the mobilization of the militant homosexual movement can do against them.
It's so true. And that's why our ministries and people like myself and others come beside people like that to encourage them. I think the baker out of Colorado, Jack, who has gone through so much litigation. He won his case, but then they tried another way in Colorado to attack him again. And if I understand correctly, that has now been settled. But the attack just doesn't stop on these people.
Right. They never give up.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And that's even what's happening now. At the federal level, we have this new legislation that's coming forward to actually normalize all homosexual behavior, LGBT, the Q, which means queering or queer, with the plus sign, as equal to gender and race. That's what they want to do.
Right. We're going to talk about that more next week. The Equality Act that our dear House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, is bringing forward. What a devilish piece of legislation that is.
That's well said, devilish.
Yeah, and the implications are going to be huge. We want to save that for next week. We have run out of time for today. Stephen, thanks so much for joining us for our second broadcast.
Thank you.
Many churches are not addressing this issue, as you know, and I hope that these programs, friends, will help dispel and perhaps correct much of the misinformation you have heard from the news media and perhaps even from your church. Well, as we've mentioned before, Stephen is the author of a brand new book entitled Freedom Realized, which will help you grasp how to reach homosexuals and lesbians with the gospel and how to minister to them. And you'll want to join us next week when Stephen will discuss the dangerous Equality Act that Nancy Pelosi is pushing to pass in Congress this session, and how, if passed, how this will affect you, your pastor, and your church. Well, friends, we've been talking with Stephen Black, the Executive Director of First Stone Ministries, and his new book, Freedom Realized, gives his testimony as well as sharing helpful information on how you can minister to homosexuals. Now, if you do not know much about this subject or want to know how to reach homosexuals or lesbians for Jesus Christ, I heartily recommend this book. And now our announcer, Dane Rome, will share how you can obtain Freedom Realized.
Thank you, Dr. Snitker. Today, we are promoting a brand new book by Stephen Black entitled Freedom Realized. It's subtitled Finding Freedom from Homosexuality and Living a Life Free from Labels. There are some unique and significant differences which distinguish Freedom Realized from other books dealing with overcoming homosexuality. First, it contains a survey from a 25-year period of First Stone Ministries that demonstrates the effectiveness of their ministry in unleashing the healing available through the gospel of Jesus Christ. Second, Freedom Realized takes a hard look at problems in ex-gay ministry, what works and what doesn't. This book is available on the following website, freedomrealized.org. Order Freedom Realized in soft cover for $17.99 or the hardcover for $27.99 plus shipping. That website address again is freedomrealized.org. Well, friends, thank you for joining us for today's podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time for another Last Days Beacon program brought to you by Southwest Prophecy Ministries. Until then, this is your announcer, Dane Rome. Thanks for listening.